Thank you. Good afternoon. As we resume the Standing Finance Committee meeting, we are on to Head 30, Ministry of Labour. Head 30, Ministry of Labour, $450,124,553. Before I invite the Minister, I'd like to welcome the Permanent Secretary and the other technocrats from your ministry. Thanks for coming. I will now invite the Minister of Labour to make a brief opening statement, not exceeding 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am again grateful for the opportunity to meet with members of the Standing Finance Committee to discuss the promising opportunities of the Ministry of Labour and intend to seize the opportunity to discuss the utilization of our budgetary allocation for fiscal 2022-2023. In fiscal 2023, the Ministry of Labour will continue with its mandate of promoting decent work in Trinidad and Tobago. This will be achieved through key activities such as labour legislation reform, facilitating opportunities for employment and employability, increasing public education on rights and responsibilities in the workplace, and strengthening social dialogue on key labour issues. Mr. Chair, our efforts at modernizing the labour legislation framework in Trinidad and Tobago will continue in fiscal 2023, with work scheduled to continue on the Industrial Relations Act, the Retrenchment and Severance Benefit Act, the Cipriani College of Labour and Cooperative Studies Bill, Sexual Harassment Bill, the Minimum Wages Act, Maternity Protection Act, Trade Union Act, and the Occupational Safety and Health Act. Additionally, important regulations on occupational safety and health will be addressed. Mr. Chair, continuing into fiscal 2023, the Ministry of Labour intends to enhance employment initiatives by ensuring trainees on the on-the-job training program receive quality training and are assigned to areas in their fields of study as they transition into the labour market. There are approximately 4,000 trainees currently in the program. Also, many use this avenue as a stepping stone to further their skills, which can be amplified through the use of our National Employment Service, where sustainable employment opportunities are facilitated. The Ministry is currently in the process of establishing a national employment online network, which would provide much-needed linkages and matching of job seekers with vacancies across all sectors of the economy. Our work in producing quality labour market information to inform and guide students and job seekers on opportunities in the world of work will continue with the conduct of a vacancy survey in the private sector and among state enterprises. We have already engaged a consultant for this undertaking. Our public education campaign on rights and responsibilities in the workplace will be enhanced using various media such as webinars, seminars, social media, as well as the traditional print and television media. Additionally, the Ministry of Labour will continue with its trust in digitization of its services, epitomized by the Cipriani College of Labour Cooperative Studies, who transitioned into a fully online institution. The upgrades to our technology have allowed online programs to be readily available to national and regional students. We will also continue to strengthen our governance framework on key labour issues, such as productivity, minimum wages, and child labour. In closing, we look forward to a productive session, and we are prepared to provide the necessary information and explanations as required by this August committee. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Honourable members, the question is that the sum of $450,124,553 for Head 30, Ministry of Labour, stand part of the schedule. Honourable members, the sum of $124,553 for head to Ministry of Labor is comprised of monies proposed for expenditure under the following subheads and items to be found in the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure, the draft estimates of the revenue and expenditure of the statutory boards and similar bodies and of the Tobago House of Assembly, and the draft estimates of the development program. We shall now consider the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure, and we are in the recurrent expenditure book, page 203, subhead 01, personal expenditure, item 001, general administration. Member for Couva South.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, with respect to line item 01, salaries and cost of living, I see you intend to, projected to spend $17.7 million in 2023, which is the said figure that was spent in 2022. Are there any existing vacancies within the organizational structure of the Ministry of Labor?
Yes, there is. There are several vacancies that we are looking to fill in various categories. At present, we have under permanent, we have 157 vacancies to fill.
157.
Of which 71 actually have bodies in them.
Okay. Acting, of course.
Right, so yeah. So what we have is basically 86 people short.
And the very fact that your salaries and cost of living will not increase in fiscal 2023, does that mean these vacancies will, these positions will remain vacant and persons also will continue to act?
Well, we are dependent in part on the Service Commission, and for the recruitment of staff, we have been working with them and continue to try and get these jobs filled. Meanwhile, as with most ministries, we continue to do short-term contracts and contracts where we can.
Okay, so in the mid-year you may ask
Yes.
the Minister of Finance for an additional allocation.
Yeah, if necessary.
With request to remuneration to board members, there's a slight increase.
Item number, please.
06, Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
06, given the boards that are under the purview of the Ministry of Labor, this figure or this increase represents what? Increased board members or persons being appointed, boards reclassified, or?
There's a new board added, the Hoist and Lifting. Hoist and Lifting Technical Committee.
The Hoist and Lifting Technical Committee.
Yes.
Is that tripartite in nature or solely the responsibility of the cabinet in terms of the appointment?
It's under OSHA and it's cabinet.
Cabinet. Okay, thank you very much.
Your hand up? Okay.
So.
On the same line, go ahead.
No.
Okay, let's move on then.
Yeah.
Right. Item 004, Occupational Safety and Health Authority. Item 005, On the Job Training Program. I recognize you, member for Couva South.
Minister, Chair, through you, with respect to 01, salaries and cost of living, there will be an increase of $300,000 for 2023. How this will be spent?
Okay. This increase is to provide payment of salaries and cost of living allowances for substantive holders in the post. It has leave relief also, and payment of arrears of acting allowance, and increments for 30 officers under the OJT.
The OJT.
Yes.
Now, through you, Chair, I ask this question because within the last fiscal year, in the public domain, the stipends of on-the-job trainees have been paid consistently late on, I think, more than 4 occasions. And I ask, the late payment of stipend, is this as a result of vacant positions in the accounts department of the on-the-job training program, or what has resulted in this?
No, it's not as a result of vacancies per se, but it has to do with us recognizing that the way we pay administratively, we had to make some changes to ensure robustness of the system. As you would appreciate, we need to ensure that the OJTs who we are paying actually work the time, and there is a system involved that we have introduced with sign-off and so on, and therefore we had a couple seeding problems. We expect that we are over that, and in 2023 we will see a major improvement.
Well, I really hope so, Mr. Minister, because at my constituency office, and I'm sure I echo the sentiments of my colleagues, we continue to have visits from on-the-job trainees who have been complaining to us to raise this issue in the public domain as it relates to the timely payments of their stipends. And I really hope that it does not happen in 2023. And some of us, we have on-the-job trainees within our constituency offices and so on.
Point made and taken. Recognize the member for Baratara Sanwan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Chair. Mr. Deputy Chair, I just want to look at the expenditure for 2022. The projected expenditure for 2022 under the OJT salaries and cost of living allowance was $2.2 million. It was then revised to $900,000. It meant that you didn't spend over $1.1 million under this program. Can you explain why you didn't spend the money? It meant that less trainees would have been hired.
I have no idea what he's talking about. Which line item are we?
Let me just...
Line item will make it easy for us to follow you clearly, because the minister is saying he not quite know where you're at. So line item and on your point.
I'll be so happy to assist the minister. So, Minister, if you look at page 203 under line item 005 on the job training program, 01, salaries and cost of living allowance, look at 2022 estimates. It's 2.266574, 2.2 million about. That is the estimate for 2022. It meant that the ministry projected to spend $2.2 million in 2022. However, when you look at the revised estimates, only $900,000 was spent. I'm asking, one, let me ask a few questions I can ask. How many OJTs were you projected to hire with the $2.2 million allocation? How many you actually hired on the $900,000 allocation? And why you did not spend the full allocation?
Actually, this line item has to do with public officers and salaries for public officers and not for trainee. That is taken up under another line item.
So within the establishment for the OJT program, there are several vacancies that existed.
This is public officers.
Right, I'm asking that. So that is within the establishment.
That are in the establishment. We did not hire several of those officers because of other constraints we had, namely housing of these officers. We are looking for space to bring on officers. So the questions you are asking are actually on another line item that deals with the payment of trainees and how we arrive at how many trainees we can actually hire.
So based on your answer that you have space constraints, do you intend to have a new building to house the OJT, the establishment staff of the OJT?
We are working with public administration to do so
And how long have you been working with public administration for this project?
over the last few months.
Member.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, just to elaborate a little bit on your response just now and my colleagues. Yes, 01 salaries, cost and living allowance, 1.2 million for 2023. OJT is a critical program. How many permanent staff or staff is involved in that OJT program? Not the trainees, the staff that is being paid for $1.2 million that is estimated in 2023.
I have it. No. We currently have 35 public service positions, and we have 33 vacancies existing. All told, I think you want to get an idea of how many people what our what our organization ought to have in terms of the establishment. We have 82, 40 contract positions that are filled, 42 contract positions that are vacant, and there's another thing that takes it to 112 or something. That's it. Right, so what we have is 82 contract and permanent employees right now, and we have vacancies of 35.
We have 42 and 33.
Or 42 and 33.
75.
Right, we have 75 vacant positions.
Follow up. And the OJT program is housed where? The headquarters? Is it in Connector Road in
Chaguanas, Connector Road.
And they have outlived that size of that building?
Yes, they have.
So you're looking for a new area, a new location to house them?
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
Recognize you now.
Honourable Minister, I know in the budget debate you said that your job is not to find jobs for others. But in light of the rising cost of living, can you say whether or not the ministry is engaged in a review of stipends for those who are on the on-the-job training program?
Just to correct the record, I did not say I did not provide jobs. I said people asked me. So just to correct the records. And secondly, one second. No, we are not at this time looking at changing the stipends.
Zero 02, goods and services, page 204, item 001, general administration. Member for Point of Pay, I recognize you.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, line item 08, rent and office accommodation. This year, a substantial decrease of $3.3 million is 9.1 is allocated for this fiscal year. Could you explain the drop in the decrease in rental? As you just mentioned, you were looking for places for the OJT office, etc.
Expenses from 2021 into 2022, which were paid, and we are not likely to carry it over to 2023. So we are basically at an even keel right now.
Member for Couva South.
Based on your response to my colleague, Point of Pay, Minister, will that explanation suffice as it relates to line items 37, janitorial services, and also security services, line item 43? Exactly. All right.
And we thank our Minister of Finance for making the money available so that we could go forward smoothly.
Thanks for that, Mr. Minister. Item 004, Occupational Safety and Health Authority, page 205. Member for Couva South again.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, with respect to the Occupational Safety and Health Authority in the context of office accommodation and storage, the existing building for the OSH authority satisfies all the requirements of what we would call the OSHA Act?
Remember the procedure. You need to give me a line item.
Yeah, I'm speaking about under the office accommodation and storage.
And what number? For ease of reference, if you give me the number.
08.
Right, lovely. 08, Mr. Minister, office accommodation and storage.
Then I cannot say so. But what I can say is that we are in the process of making a recommendation to Cabinet to have the people relocated.
Response, Minister. Based on you are making a recommendation to Cabinet, is there a projected building in terms of the expenditure and all these things that will be incurred?
When we make that decision, you will be informed in due course, but what we are trying to do now is to move our employees from several locations into one. So the building is too small to house the full complement, and we feel that we need to move them into one unified building. It's currently under the jurisdiction of Cabinet right now, so I would not want to divulge who, where, or what.
Okay, but the Minister of Finance will provide the financial resources.
Definitely.
With respect to contract employment, line 16, there is an increase of 13.366 and $600, $13,366,600. Could you inform this meeting how this sum of money will be expended in the fiscal year? Is it for recruitment of occupational safety and health inspectors? And if so, how many?
Well, move forward to 2023. We are looking to recruit 30 positions, namely administration, services supervisor, hotline operators, clerks, safety health inspectors too. I believe currently we have on our establishment 4 safety inspectors, which is the burning question I know you really want to ask, is we have 35? Sorry about that, just getting some clarification.
No problem. The inspectorate.
We have 72 inspectors on the establishment. The actual number of vacant positions is 49. We have 21 people on long-term contract and 2 people on short-term contract. And we have already gone out with regards to recruiting, so we have already put out advertisements, and we are currently shortlisting and aggressively interviewing people to bring on board, because we now have the positions that was approved by Cabinet available.
Thank you very much, Minister. So you said 72 inspectors on the establishment and 49 on the establishment are vacant. And these 49 are what we would call not subjected to contract positions, but they are established public officers?
No, these are contract positions, long-term contract positions.
Long-term contract position. Minister, given in recent times, we have seen the national or unprecedented tragedy at Paria and also the explosion at Naikwan on the Pointe-a-Pierre compound here. Wouldn't you say that there is an urgent need to ensure that these vacancies are filled not from a contract position, but from the point of view of the establishment, on the establishment, where they will not be subjected to contract position and could fulfill their duties on a sustained and continuous basis on behalf of the working population, so that we could have a sense of comfort that the principles of health and safety along the lines of the Occupational Safety and Health Act is not being compromised within Trinidad and Tobago?
It's a long question. The entire OSH staff right now is contract. We are going to review that in 2023 with respect to the establishment and how best it should be organized. But I think right now we are quite capable of handling all the issues that come before us. We can always improve, but we can manage.
Follow up, Mr.
Sir, given the fact that you have 49 vacant positions within OSHA, could you inform this House, indeed, if within the last fiscal year, the investigations into the explosions at Naikwan and also at Paria have been completed by the Occupational Safety and Health Authority?
I don't know how much that and what that has to do with the issue of expenditure at this point in time. But what I can say to you,
Hold on.
is, yeah,
I'm listening to you.
yeah, what I can say to you is that the investigation with regards to the Paria incident is completed, and the Naikwan incident will be completed in about a month or two.
You see, this leads me to a further line of questioning through you, Chair.
It's not debatable. I just want us to ensure that it remains with the line item 1 and relate to fiscal measures.
Of course, Chairman.
And it relates to fiscal measures.
We are speaking about vacant position. We are speaking about health and safety. We are speaking about the national interest of the working population of Trinidad and Tobago.
And we have that opportunity,
I am
member.
speaking in the context of an Occupational Safety and Health Act, which the government of Trinidad and Tobago has a responsibility to uphold on behalf of all the people of this country.
Right.
That is the line of questioning.
Right. And the question is?
The question is, Minister, recently in the public domain, we were told that Naikwan was given a certificate to resume operations on the said facility, And I am forced to ask the question, if OSHA did not complete its report, how then was NICON given the go-ahead to resume work?
For the purpose of this meeting, I'm not entertaining that question.
Thank you. Further to this, in the context of vacant positions, Mr. Minister, is there an acting head of the Occupational Safety and Health Authority from the position of Chief Inspector, or is this position vacant at this point in time, or someone has been appointed on a full-time basis?
Still on the same line item, member,
Yes.
which is 16.
We are, yes, the issue of contract.
Right.
This has been filled.
It has been filled. Could we find out? I don't know if the Minister of Energy wants to
It's through the
assist
chair.
me at
It's
this
through the
point
chair.
in time where he has a job
It's through the chair.
at the ministry.
I was just saying, member for Couva South, that if you wanted to apply, I'm sure he would welcome the application.
All in good, just Chairman. Through you, Chair, Minister, the person or the position, has it been filled from a permanent or contract position?
Contract.
And when was this position filled?
That was filled recently in the last month or two. I can't give you an exact date, but if you
But
want that, I can give it to you.
could you furnish with
Sure.
the passage of time when, and are you willing to provide to this meeting the compensation package for that said position and the qualifications of the existing office holder?
Will do.
So, Minister,
you.
you're comfortable in
Yes.
supplying that information? Fine. Member for Princeton,
Part of the
you still have a
public-
question?
part of the public domain.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Minister, line item 66, hosting of conferences, seminars, and other functions. And I raise this issue in the context of an announcement that was made by your predecessor in light of government's sexual harassment policy in the workplace. Sexual harassment in the workplace policy. The question is, the minister then, well, minister come, minister is gone, but you are the minister in the position now. The question is, in light of the previous commitment that was made for public consultations on the sexual harassment in the workplace policy, can the minister indicate whether or not the reflection of $108,250 is a reflection of the public consultations that are to come in this year with respect to the sexual harassment in the workplace policy?
Do we have any relevance there, Mr. Minister, in terms of that line item?
I don't know where he's at. He says line 66, but line 66 under OSH, I'm not sure whether he's on OSH or...
That line item will fall for most of the areas under the Ministry of Labor. So I take the opportunity to raise it in its entirety, but in this context as well.
No, he has
No,
a line item.
Remember, we're still on page 205, eh? Item 004. We are still on.
Oh,
So you have
my
gone ahead.
apologies, Mr. Chairman. It's in the other area.
All right. So, Couva West? Couva South, sorry.
I don't know if, Chairman, you are redefining the boundaries.
You go ahead.
Yes, coming back to... No, I wouldn't want to bring the Deputy Chair into the work of the EBC. I'll leave that for Degomate notice. Yes, Chair. Minister, with respect, coming back to contract employment and the work of the inspectors and so on, you just indicated to this meeting that the report into the Pariag tragedy was completed. Could you indicate if the government will lay that said report in this House and into the public domain, and if so, when?
I don't know that.
I'm
that
not
is figured.
entertaining that question, member.
Thank you, Chair.
Item 005 on the job training program, page 206. Member for Point of Pay.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Chair. Chair. Line item 17, Minister Training, $300,000 allocated to this. I know that's the OJT stipends. Could you identify how many trainees presently are in the system?
Is in the system.
I pass on to, that's it for now.
Earlier on, Minister, I think it was my colleague from Princestown asked, was it Point of Pay when you said that there is no intention on behalf of the ministry to increase the stipend allocation. And I see that now you have an increase of $48,032,623 for fiscal 2023. How much more trainees will be recruited with this increased allocation?
Line item is in.
The line item is 17.
17.
Training.
Still on training, right.
Chair. My apologies.
Okay, we have, we envisage that during the 2022-23 session, we will have approximately 5,000 to 5,500 trainees on board.
That means
in various categories.
yeah, but so you are seeking what, an additional 1,000
We're looking at an additional 1,000 trainees.
trainees? Okay, thank you.
Princestown, and then I'll go to Bartara Sanwan.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Just a follow-up to where the member for Couva South left off, and a clarification from the member, from the minister. Same line item, training. With respect to this 1,000 additional persons that you expect to bring onto the program, government as policy had indicated that they were streamlining in terms of targeting specific areas of training and particularly areas of study. Would this also apply to the OJT, or would this additional 1,000 be across spectrums in terms of areas of interest?
It would be across the spectrum. The on-the-job training seeks to provide opportunities for people who have already mastered certain educational level skills and so on. So what we do is try to match them with appropriate jobs across the entire spectrum.
Bartara Sanwan.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Chair. Mr. Deputy Chair, I want to remain on that line item of training, item 17, and the estimate for 2022 would have been 293 million, and then the revised estimate would have been 251 million or so. So that's about $42 million that remain unspent from what was allocated for the OJT program. Minister, can you indicate why this money was unspent? It meant that OJTs weren't hired or they didn't apply?
You would recall that we had a pandemic, and therefore we had lockdowns, and students we would not have put trainees in harm's way, so therefore we had a distinct approach to not increase or to send trainees out, given the situation that was occurring in 21-22.
Minister, for the majority of this year and last year, the entire public service was open, all of the services were reopened. Minister, how can you then say that you didn't want to send out persons? You according to this yellow book, had asked for this allocation to be made of 293 million because you projected you were going to hire OJTs to cover this entire allocation, and now you're saying that the pandemic caused this?
Minister.
And you have so many persons unemployed. You have young people with degrees today who are unemployed waiting for an OJT position.
I would simply say that in 2020, 2021, and early 2022, that if the member feels we did not do what we ought to do, then I stand guilty in protecting our children and our young people. And therefore, I totally endorse and accept the fact that we took the decision not to increase our output because of the uncertainty that existed in the entire country during that period. So if you want to put a blame on some, I'll take it.
Minister, so Minister, you had no idea or policy in order to integrate these OJTs into the work from home policy also that your ministry had published?
Trainees,
yes,
work from home, make the connection.
Minister, let me just explain something to you. We now live in a virtual world where you are going to ask persons to work from this parliament itself worked remotely at several points in time. You have your ministries working remotely. Why couldn't you have integrated the OJTs within that entire organization?
Minister,
I think.
you care to comment? Last comment, rather than we going back and forth?
No,
Over
I
to
don't
Mr.
need to
Minister.
comment. No.
Okay.
Mr. Deputy
Right.
Chair, I have one.
Hold 1 second. All right, I'll recognize the member for.
Thank you very much, Mr.
St.
Deputy
Anne's.
Chair. Just to put on record for those that may be looking on and following what's going on today, the economy was only fully reopened after the first quarter of this year. So the economy was only opened in April, around March, April of this year. So that would explain why for most of the fiscal, you had that not happening. None of us were working fully. The public service only came back out then. And also, as the minister is saying, it's training. How could you have training on a Zoom where the training is, well, come and learn the engineering skills, etc.? It's more of that physical training.
All right, so again, members, we are going back and forth, right? Subject to what you may say now, I will probably have to give the minister the last remark.
I'm on another line.
Oh, you're on another line.
Yeah.
But
I acknowledge the comments from my colleague from Port of Spain North and St. John's West.
okay.
So I'm on line item 08, rent and office accommodation. Earlier on, the minister told us that they were in the process of looking for a place in order to house the OJT program, a larger space. When you look at the allocation here, it's no significant increase from what was spent last year. So, Minister, are you projected to have this space ready for the increased staff that you projected for the OJT program? I'm talking about persons on the establishment,
Okay.
not the trainees.
All right. Yes, we are working towards accommodating them and finding appropriate square footage to ensure that we could actually add some efficiency to the program.
Based on this allocation, you wouldn't have the money to spend for an additional space.
Minister.
Why wouldn't we have money? We're moving from where we are. The building that we're in right now, we don't pay rent for it. We do not pay rent for it. And therefore, based on current market values and the way PMCD actually determines rental, we think we will be covered.
But there's no increase really, Minister, because for the last year, you were given an estimate of 700,000. You spent 570,000, and then the same allocation of $700,000 is given again. And you just said...
We did not spend any money last.
No, you did. According to the revised estimates, it's $570,000.
It's not an actual, it's a revised estimate.
So do you have the figure that you can provide us with?
What figure?
Because are you then disputing that the $570,000 is not an accurate figure that is in the yellow books?
Listen, this is an estimate. I don't know in terms of maybe my accounting skills are getting dull, but an estimate is just that. In mid-year, we came back with a view to determining, and we felt that we may have gotten the building at that time, and therefore we put in an estimate. Turns out that we did not get the building at that time.
So Minister, are you,
You still
saying
need some
that
clarity, member, for
not
Bartera?
really, Mr. Deputy Chair, because as we understand this exercise in this Parliament is that when you see an estimate for a particular year and then you see a revised estimate, it would really give an indication that this was the amount of money that may have been spent from that particular line item. We see $700,000 was estimated, and then we see the revised estimate was $570,000. So which gives an indication to the members of this House that at least $570,000 was utilized for rent in this particular line item. Now the minister is coming to tell us that no money was spent.
Okay.
Make it make sense.
Mr. Minister,
If we go, no, I can answer that.
clarify. Look to move on.
If we go at 2021, where you saw actuals of 481, and in 2022 original estimates, we would have thought we would have gone to a new building. So we upped that, but we came back in 2022, and it came out in mid-year that we revised it downwards. We had the same level of expenditure that we had approximately in 2021 in 2022. What we are saying now is that we hope to go back to that we need to go back to new rental accommodation, and that will now go up to 700,000.
So what you're saying,
I don't know what else you need,
I don't
Bartera.
want you to again.
no, Mr. Deputy Chair, what is unclear is that money is being spent for rent, because he gave, the minister, gave the indication that they spent about 481.
Remember, he said it's an estimate.
It's an estimate.
He gave the minister, gave the example of, if you look at 2021, $481,000 was actually spent, So what was that money spent for then, if you're saying that you don't pay rent? Because there's an actual expenditure.
No, but remember, we have the columns identified clearly where there are estimates, right, what was actually spent and where the increases are.
Correct.
Right, and I think the minister has explained, has clarified. I don't know what else is there to clarify.
I think the minister is missing the point,
Right. Right, so listen, members, I need to move on.
Yeah.
Mr. Minister Bartera Sanwan.
Mr. Deputy Chair, with all due respect, I think the minister wanted to offer an answer, so I don't know.
Quickly, if you look at the line, the heading, rent, lease, office accommodation, and storage, we do have a number of storage facilities that we actually pay for. Yeah.
Okay, you still have a question? All right, no, right, lovely. Okay, subhead 03, minor equipment purchases. We're on page 206, item 001, general administration. Item 004, occupational safety and health authority, 207. Item 005, on-the-job training program, 207. Subhead 04, current transfers and subsidies. Item 004, international bodies. Item 005, non-profit institutions. Item 007, households. We're now on page 208. Item 009, other transfers. Item 010, other transfers abroad. And we're on page 208. I recognize point of pay.
Chair. Minister, just in 01 funding for the liaison office in Canada, total $2.4 million. How many staff this represents, this figure, or is it for staffing?
We have 4 people housed in that office.
On to subhead 06, current transfers to statutory boards and similar bodies, different book, and we are on page 203. Honorable members, we will now move on to the draft estimates of the revenue and expenditure of the statutory boards and similar bodies and of the Tobago House of Assembly. 17, Cipriani Labour College, Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies, subhead 01, Personal Expenditure, page 203, item 001, General Administration. I recognize the member for Couva South.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, under 01, salaries and cost of living, this $12,107,970. That calculation is based on what collective bargaining period for the employees of Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies?
The period, the time period. I'm not sure about the time period. Can I provide you with that information? I'm not sure at this time what the time period is.
Okay, no problem.
Subhead 02, Goods and Services, item 001, General Administration. Couva South, you with us again?
Minister, could you tell us what has been responsible for this decrease of $1,953,481 as it relates to expenditure on electricity charges?
The decrease?
Yeah.
Well, as most ministries, we had our carryover from 2021 into 2022, and we have since paid those bills, and therefore, going forward, we are current.
The opening up of physical classes and the institution functioning now more or less on a full-time basis, do you not project that there will be the need for an increased expenditure from the point of view of electricity charges?
Not much. The college has been opened and running during the period, and we have a pretty good idea of what the average electricity bills are on an ongoing basis. So we have no difficulty with the figures.
Subhead 03, Minor Equipment Purchases, page 204, item 001, General Administration. Subhead 04, Current Transfers and Subsidies, item 007, Households. Honorable members, we now move to the draft estimates of the development program. And again, development program booklet. Subhead 09, Development Program, Consolidated Fund, page 74. Item 003, Economic Infrastructure, G, Business Services, and I recognize Couva South, page 74.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, under line item 009, Determination and Impact of the Minimum Wage Level on the Economy, there's a projected expenditure of $300,000, having only spent $20,000 for fiscal 2022. Could you indicate to us what is the status of this particular project? When is it being completed, near to completion, and so on?
Yes, the expenditure of $20,000 really was to advertise the tender. Since then, the ministry has tendered unsuccessfully in the last fiscal year, where we actually got one bid in, and it did not meet the criteria. We have since gone back out, and we received two bids as of September 23rd, and we are currently in the process of going into an evaluation.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. I mean, given the impact of the cost of living on the wider society and so on, I ask that this particular issue be treated with a sense of urgency, because if we are at the stage of merely evaluation of what has come in, then will you be in a position to tell this meeting if you have a targeted or projected date for the completion of this exercise?
The exercise is intended to take about 9 months.
About 9 months. And will the findings of this exercise in terms of the impact of the minimum wage level on the economy and so on, will that be placed before the agenda of the National Tripartite Advisory Council for further discussion and so on?
I would love to do that, but I need them to come back to the table.
With respect to the national productivity enhancement, 015, line item 015, national productivity enhancement. Minister, there was an allocation of 800,000. Apparently none was spent. You are projected that 500,000 will be spent on this exercise. Again, what is the status and when will it be completed?
All right. We are currently putting the board of the National Productivity Council together as we speak. We did have over the last 2 years some issues regarding who is actually responsible for the board. The Ministry of Labor has taken full accountability for the board, and we will be in the next 3 months or so establishing this board and moving very quickly towards seeking some, getting some work out of them, because you would appreciate that this is past due and actually very necessary.
Minister, I taking into consideration, and I've noted what you have said, what will be, could you elaborate on the composition of this board? Will it be solely the purview of the cabinet? Will it be tripartite in nature?
It will be tripartite in nature.
Well, I asked that question in the context of you, just a couple moments ago you said that...
So you got...
No, I want to finish what I'm saying, Chair, with your kind permission. That you needed the labor fraternity to come back to the National Tripartite Advisory Council. Do you think that you will have, taking into consideration that you stated that this will be tripartite in nature, do you think representatives of the labor fraternity will furnish you with the representatives to participate on this?
We're going into some debating here now. You know what I mean? Mr. Minister, I'm not putting forward that question to be answered. I'll need to move on. Item 005, multi-sectoral and other services, pages 75 to 77. Yeah, go ahead, Kuvas out.
You said 75 to
75 to 77. We through to those three pages.
On page 76, Minister. Minister, I want to guide you to line item 059, the labor legislation reform. Does that take into consideration, because $200,000 will be spent on this reform agenda? Does it cover the Industrial Relations Act and the Retrenchment and Severance Benefit Act? Because I ask that question, especially as it relates to the Retrenchment and Severance Benefit Act. When ArcelorMittal and Centrin was closed, your predecessor, with much fanfare, came to the constituency of Couva South, and more precisely, the headquarters of the Steelworkers Union on Southern Main Road in California, and stated that amendments to the Retrenchment and Severance Benefit Act was high on the agenda of the government and would be placed on the legislative agenda.
Through Mr. Chair, yes, that is the case. Both the IRA and the Severance and Severance Act are currently before our subcommittees of cabinet. We have most of all of the recommendations, and I am in fact dealing with the AG's office now in terms of finalizing those pieces of legislations to move forward. So given that it has taken some time, it is being looked at this present time.
Okay. Question again, member for Couva South?
Yes, Minister. 062 Occupational Health and Safety Program. Minister, I mean, with recent events in Trinidad and Tobago, especially, I've stated it earlier on and I will reiterate it, as it relates to the explosion at Naikwan and what transpired at Paria, that national tragedy. I see no allocation in the context of Occupational Health and Safety Program, absolutely none for 2022 and 2023. Minister, do you think that from a development program point of view, this is the way to go as it relates to addressing the health and safety concerns of the working population of this country?
This particular item was reprioritized, and instead USH and the ministry took the decision to basically look at regulations, which we have done. And in fact, I have 4 or 5 regulations in front of me now to move on. So we have shifted our priorities, and based on those accidents, what we found is that we have a lot of regulations that are not in place, and as a priority, we want to get those regulations done, and it's taken up under another.
So that will lead me to line item 105, which is a new project. And as you stated, in the context of regulations to the Occupational Safety and Health Act, well, you indicated that recent events would have guided this. Do you have a timeline for the projected completion of this particular exercise?
As you know, regulations that we consider today, things might happen tomorrow, and we have new regulations to consider. But I have before me 5 regulations at present, and we have on the agenda several more, so we'll be rolling them out on a consistent basis. But to say to you a timeline for all regulations, no, I won't be able to say that.
You will continue. Go ahead.
Minister, given the importance of these regulations, and again, I'm sure that this will complement the Occupational Safety and Health Act, have these regulations had the sight of the business community and the labor community, and have both communities and so on signed off on these regulations? Or are they merely in draft at this point in time?
They are in draft, but consultation was had with various stakeholders. The stakeholders would have given their recommendations which were taken on board, and we now have some draft regulations that we are moving forward with.
Member for Princestown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Minister, line item 101, the implementation of the National Workplace Policy on Sexual Harassment. As I had indicated earlier, your predecessor had indicated in this House actually that government intended on having public consultations on this matter. One, could the minister indicate whether or not these public consultations have occurred or will occur in the very near future? And can the minister indicate at what stage is the legislative support for this policy?
The ministry under this particular line heading have been actually doing a number of initiatives with regards to training, with regards to sensitization and so on. And so we launched a number of campaigns in this particular issue. We have implemented a hotline which will be active before the end of the year. We have paid for and we are doing some of the training now necessary for people to man that hotline. With regards to the actual, it's one of the issues on our legislative agenda. We have not gone out for extensive consultation or anything like that, but it is a priority item on our legislative agenda.
Okay.
Sure. Minister, you would appreciate that the answer that you provided is a very vague answer, where this allocation under the development program specifically says it's the implementation of the policy. So we just really wanted to have a context of where we are as of now in terms of the actual implementation. But all you've told me is about a hotline, and that is high on your priority, but very little in terms of substantially what has occurred and at what stage we are at in terms of a line item of implementation.
Anything to add from a fiscal nature, please? Right?
No,
we cannot go
this is more qualitative in terms of the question he's asking, but that is a discussion for a different place and time. We have a number of items in terms of videos that have been produced, workshops that are taking place, going into the various ministries and the workplace and so on, as a program of rollout. So to give you that now is not going to make, we'll just prolong this till tomorrow.
On the same line. Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, just to prod the minister further. Minister, could you say at this stage whether or not there's a draft bill to support this policy or amendments to the current legislation that exists? At this time, is that actually happening? A draft bill or a draft amendments?
Currently, the AG has responsibility for this particular piece of legislation. And
that's on the Attorney General's on one hand, but obviously the Ministry of Labour would have some sort of input and some sort of draft.
Input, but this particular piece of legislation crosses gender, Prime Minister's Office, Attorney General, Ministry of Labour, and therefore it's a multi-ministry type, and the AG has taken the lead on this piece of legislation.
You can say that there is no draft bill or no draft amendments in terms of something concrete.
I can't say that. The AG has to say that.
Couva South. I know Couva North had his hand up a while. Couva North.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I would like to refer the minister.
I need to hear you a little here.
Yeah, that's better?
Yeah, it's a little better.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, line item 0103, Ministry of Labour Digital Transformation Plan.
Sure.
Minister, you spent
$2.5 million, and you're estimating another $4 million for this fiscal term. Can you provide us with the scope of this project, the expected duration of this project, and the expected completion date of this project? And can you provide for us the deliverables that we can see coming out of the $2.5 million that you have already spent, and what we expect to see during this fiscal term with that $4 million that you intend to spend?
Mrs. Minister.
Those were a lot of requests that I don't know I can articulate in terms. There are about 7 or 8 things he asked for.
Minister, can you provide it in writing if you don't have the information now?
If you want to, sure.
All right, and also for line item 105, going back to this line item, you said there's no, the regulation of the Occupational Safety and Health Authority. You said there's no timeline for the regulations. What you have is some draft regulations, and you are asking for $128,000 there, but you are not providing any sort of timelines to the member for Couva-South when he was asking you. Can you advise us what deliverables we expect to see at the end of this fiscal term with this $128,000, and what is the timelines that we will be working with? What will be the completion date of this project here also?
This $128,000 is to deal with 3 pieces of legislation. To date, we have conducted consultations on 6 draft regulations, 5 of which are currently being finalized within the Ministry of Labor. You would appreciate that as we do consultations, we will have a need for rental, for secretariat, for a number of other items. And therefore, this $128,000 is meant to fulfill those needs.
So we can expect to see this project completed at the end of this fiscal term?
The regulations will not necessarily be ever completed, because as we move, we have new issues and new things coming up. So for instance, just a quick one, Mr. T. For instance, the diving regulations. We have never had serious diving incidents until we had the PARIA, and then we recognize that based on that, there is a need for a regulation. I dare say that in the coming years, we will also have other issues that we do not now have coverage for in terms of regulations. And therefore, I see the development of regulations as an ongoing activity.
I recognize Couva-South.
Thank you very much, Minister. Just back to the issue of the implementation of a national workplace policy on sexual harassment, which is 101. At your ministry, because this is a very live issue, a very topical issue, sexual harassment in the workplace. In relation to the policy and the intended legislation when it will come, at your ministry, do you have statistics in terms of the amount of incidents of sexual harassment at the workplace which have been formally reported to the ministry? That will send an even greater need to really dispose of this from a policy point of view, and then move on to the next stage?
At the ministry, I am sure that we have incidences and reports of sexual harassments that would lead people to seek redress and so on. So you would have some of that, but I would not say that that is extensive in terms of capturing what the real issue, the real impact is on sexual harassment in the workplace, because it's such a taboo subject. And we also have to do some surveys and so on through our various arms within the ministry to get information back. It's not something that people easily give out information that I was sexually harassed, though.
I ask that in the context of those that may have been formally reported and so on. And whatever data that you may have at the ministry or within your purview, if you would want to furnish me with the passage of time.
No problem.
And with respect to 071, the development of a labor migration policy in Trinidad and Tobago. As you would know, Minister, we have not only the Venezuelan migrants in Trinidad and Tobago who have been formally recognized by the government in terms of the registration process, their stay in Trinidad continues to be extended and so on. And we have migrants of a global nature from within the global community coming to Trinidad and Tobago. And I think that the protection of migrant labor is a very important issue. And could you really indicate or be in a position to indicate when this labor migration policy will be finalized? Because I see that $333,000 was allocated in 2022. None was spent, not a cent was spent. $333,000 has been allocated in fiscal 2023. And I get the feeling that this particular migration policy is not high on the agenda of the government of Trinidad and Tobago.
Currently, there is a draft policy which I am currently, as we speak, began reading it last week, with regards to the migration policy. Once satisfied, I will be moving that forward to Cabinet. And then from there, as you know how the legislative agenda works, we will have to have further consultations and so on. But there is a document that is before me right now that I'm looking at.
Minister, I hope that you was not anticipating my question that led you to the reading of this particular document. But more importantly, will this document, when it is finalized, will it be laid in the Parliament?
Yes.
Thank you. And with respect to the development of a child labor policy, Mr. Minister, where we are on this particular issue, 091, because as you know, child labor too is something that is near and dear not only to myself but the opposition.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just intervene for 1 minute, if
No
the
problem.
member doesn't mind.
No problem.
I know the minister said that the policy document will be laid in the Parliament. It will be dependent on what the Cabinet says after the minister brings it to the Cabinet. And I know my friend from Couva South is well aware of the process. So after that, and it is examined by the Cabinet, it will then go through the process of going to the LRC and that kind of thing. And what most likely will be laid would be a piece of legislation, not necessarily the policy document and the legislation.
Like Section 34.
Right.
You know?
So you're satisfied, member? Moving on.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm satisfied.
Thank you, colleague.
But I have a question to follow up on in the context of the child labor policy. I see the member for Aruka Maloney has intervened with her years of experience as it relates to the laying of government documents and so on. But more importantly, the child labor policy, as I said, which is near and dear to the opposition and by extension should be near and dear to all right-thinking citizens, because the exploitation of children is something that we all playing our respective roles to eliminate within our country. When do you envisage this policy might be completed, Minister?
Well, currently we have, we're in the market for a consultant to do some work with regards to this, and we are currently evaluating that tender, and we hope to engage that consultant to start work in early 2023. That would require a lot of work because, as you said, it is dear to many people's heart, and we would want to get it right. So to say to you at this point in time that it would be done in June 2023, would not make any sense. And as you know how this goes, we have a long way to go given that we're now starting with the consultations.
I hear you, Minister, and I would simply implore that you place it high on the agenda given the high level of unemployment in the society. Children are always exploited in such environments, and also to be guided by the Convention of the International Labour Organization and so on as your ministry moves forward.
Fund, page 192, item 005, multi-sectoral and other services, F, public buildings, page 192. Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $450,124,553 for Head 30, Ministry of Labour, stand part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. The sum of $450,124,553 for Head 30, Ministry of Labour, now stands part of the schedule. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Thank you, Permanent Secretary. Thank you to the executives of your ministry, and do reach home safely. Registration, Recognition and Certification Board. Head 11, Registration, Recognition and Certification Board. $4,152,900. And I would now like to invite the Chairman, Minister of Finance, or Minister of Labour. Well, the Minister of Labour will do it. Minister of Labour to make a brief opening statement, not exceeding 5 minutes. Your technocrats are on the way. Registrar of the Registration, Recognition and Certification Board, welcome, and your other colleagues from your board. So now, I'll invite the Minister of Labour to make a brief opening statement, not exceeding 5 minutes. Mr. Minister.
Hi. The Registration, Recognition and Certification Board consists of a chairman and 8 members appointed by the Minister of Labour. The chairman is selected by the President, and we have 3 members nominated by such organizations as, in the opinion of the Minister, are most representative of workers. There are 3 members of such organizations most representative of employers, and there are 3 members representative of workers and employers. The work of the Registration and Recognition Certification Board cannot be, well, let me say that it's an important board that really manages some aspects of the labor, the the labor landscape. Sorry for that. Right? So they really determine applications and petitions on matters concerning certification and recognition of various bodies under the Industrial Relations Act. They certify recognized majority unions. They record the certification of recognized majority unions in a book kept for that purpose. They also make agency shop orders under Part 5 of the Industrial Relations Act. They are also responsible for the cancellation of certification of recognition of trade unions and such other matters as are referred by the Minister of Labor. I want to say that this board has been doing extremely good work, and we come before this body today to look at our expenditure and to provide some explanations, should there be any, with regards to the operation of this entity. So I thank you, Mr. Chair, and ask that we proceed with this.
Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $4,152,900 for Head 11, Registration, Recognition, and Certification Board stands part of the schedule. Honorable members, the sum of $4,152,900 for Head 11, Registration, Recognition, and Certification Board is comprised of monies proposed for expenditure under the following subheads and items to be found in the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure. Subhead 01, Personal Expenditure, page 48. Item 001, General Administration. I recognize the member for Couva South.
Thank you very much, Chair. Very quickly to the Minister. Minister, 06, remuneration to board members. I see an increase or projected increase of $209,500 for fiscal 2023. Does that reflect the need to fill vacant positions on the board? And if so, how many?
Yes. Yes. The tenure of the last board came to an end in May. Hence, we reduced expenditure for 2021, but in 2022-2023, that board would be reorganized. They did not have all the members at that time, and therefore we hope to have a fully constituted board in 2022.
I asked that question, Minister, based on the fact that the way the composition of that board, in terms of its functioning, must have its complement of government, labor, and government, labor, and business representatives. And I would urge you to ensure that the composition is filled in a very timely manner to facilitate the work of the board. And that will lead me to the other question of, through you to the registrar, if we could find out how many matters are before the board pending for determination.
How many members, how many items are pending before the board?
Matters, yeah.
Okay, yeah, we could do that.
You will?
Yep.
I didn't hear you, Minister. Sorry.
So we will provide it in writing.
Thank you very much.
Subhead 02, Goods and Services. Item 001, General Administration, pages 48 and 49. Subhead 03, Minor Equipment Purchases. Item 001, General Administration, page 49. Subhead 04, Current Transfers and Subsidies. Item 007, Households, page 50. Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $152,900 for Head 11, Registration, Recognition, and Certification Board, stand part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Members, please. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. The sum of $4,152,900 for Head 11, Registration, Recognition, and Certification Board now stands part of the schedule. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Thank you, Registrar. And thank you to your senior executives at the board. Head 12, Public Service Appeal Board. Head 12, Public Service Appeal Board. $3,223,000. I will now invite the Minister of Finance to make a brief statement for a maximum of 5 minutes. Yes, Mr. Minister. Okay.
I understand the technocrats is ill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The Public Service Appeal Board handles appeals for any decision that was given by a service commission or any person to whom powers of the commission have been delegated as a result of disciplinary proceedings brought against a public officer. Do you need to know more?
Okay. Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $3,223,000 for Head 12 Public Service Appeal Board stand part of the schedule. Honorable members, the sum of $3,323,000 for Head 12 Public Service Appeal Board is comprised of monies proposed for expenditure under the following subheads and items to be found in the draft estimates of the recurrent expenditure. We are now at page 52, subhead 01, Personal Expenditure. Item 001, General Administration. I recognize the member for Couva South.
Thank you very much, Minister. Are you in a position to, under 01, Salaries and Cost of Living Allowance, the sum that is expected to be spent in 2023, that sum is for what collective bargaining period in terms of the calculation? Period. Is it current in terms of what is
We're
under?
on page 52.
Yes. Salaries and cost of
01, Salaries and Cost of Living.
And you're asking about which collective bargaining period?
Yes. Is it current?
Since the Public Services Association, as the honourable member very well knows, because he's a very experienced trade unionist and he still has ties to the trade union movement, he knows that the PSA has not yet accepted the government's offer for the period 2014 to 2016 and 2017 to 2019. These figures will be based on current salaries rather than increased salaries. Is that the answer to your question?
It's not the answer, but
Okay. It is what it is.
Subhead 02, Goods and Services, page 52. Item 001, General Administration, pages 52 and 53. Subhead 03, Minor Equipment Purchases. Item 01, General Administration. Subhead 04, Current Transfers and Subsidies. Item 007, households, page 53. Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $3,223,000 for Head 12 Public Service Appeal Board stand part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. The sum of $3,223,000 for Head 12 Public Service Appeal Board now stands part of the schedule. We now move on to Head 07, Statutory Authorities Service Commission. Head 07, Statutory Authorities Service Commission, $5,434,140. So I will now invite the Minister of Finance to make a brief opening statement, not exceeding 5 minutes. Welcome, Madam, and welcome. Over to you, Mr. Minister, when you're ready.
The Statutory Authorities Service Commission is an independent body established by Act Number 16 of 1966. The Act was assented to on August 2nd, 1966, and the Commission was operationalized in 1967. It has its origins, as I've indicated before, in the British civil service tradition, which is that the appointment, promotion, discipline, and dismissal of officers should be insulated from political influence. It is responsible for a number of statutory authorities. For example, the City of Port of Spain, City of San Fernando, the boroughs, and a number of other statutory bodies, hence its name, Statutory Authorities Service Commission, as distinct from the Public Service Commission.
Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $5,434,140 for Head 07, Statutory Authorities Service Commission, stand part of the schedule. Honorable members, the sum of $5,434,140 for Head 07, Statutory Authorities Service Commission, is comprised of monies proposed for expenditure under the following subheads and items to be found in the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure. Subhead 01, Personal Expenditure, page 35, item 001, General Administration, and we're on page 35. Member for Point Appeal.
Chair, just a quick question to the Minister on line item 06, remuneration to board directors. 2022, the spent was only $12,000, and this year is $64,000. Was it? Could you explain if there was no board in place or just didn't have a composition?
Minister.
That is for a disciplinary tribunal. That's not for the commission itself. So that varies. This year we expect to have more expenditure on that item.
Thank you. Yes, excuse.
Subhead 02, Goods and Services, item 001, General Administration. Subhead 03, Minor Equipment Purchases, item 001, General Administration. Subhead 04, Current Transfers and Subsidies, item 007, Households. Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $5,434,140 for Head 07, Statutory Authority Service Commission stand part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. The sum of $5,434,140 for head 07 Statutory Authorities Service Commission now stands part of the schedule. Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Head 09 Tax Appeal Board. Head 09 Tax Appeal Board, $8,604,800. I now invite the Minister of Finance. I now invite the Attorney General to make a brief opening statement, not exceeding 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And may I say that I observed the proceedings earlier today on television, and may I compliment the Honourable Speaker for the dignity, poise, and grace, and the firm and balanced hand with which you have managed the proceedings for the day. Madam Speaker, the Tax Appeal Board is an independent superior court of record which is established pursuant to the provisions of the Tax Appeal Board, Chapter 4, Number 50. And I emphasize that because in my role as Attorney General, I am merely the line minister, the conduit through which this independent court would appear today as it does for the approval of Parliament on the matters at hand. The board consists of a president, a chairman, and a deputy chairman, Honorable Mr. Justice Anthony Gafford, the registrar, not deputy chairman, the registrar, Mr. Passad, who I have the privilege of having here with me today, and ordinary members, their honors, Mr. Roland Hussein, Ms. Christine Sahadio, and Ms. Cheryl Phillip. And the court deals with a wide variety of issues on appeal from various administrative bodies in respect of both direct income, corporation, stamp duty, and indirect taxes such as VAT, as well as anti-dumping appeals and other related matters such as petroleum taxes and appeals pursuant to various pieces of legislation. I have the distinction to be here today to assist this Honourable House.
General. Honourable members, the question is that the sum of $8,604,800 for head 09 Tax Appeal Board stand part of the schedule. Honourable members, the sum of $8,604,800 for head 09 Tax Appeal Board is comprised of monies proposed for expenditure under the following subheads and items to be found in the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure and the draft estimates of the development program. We shall now consider the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure. We are at page 44. Subhead 01, personnel expenditure. Item 001, general administration. Subhead 02, goods and services. Item 001, general administration. Subhead 03, minor equipment purchases. Item 001, general administration. Subhead 04, current transfers and subsidies. Item 007, households. Honourable members, we shall now move to the draft estimates of development program. Subhead 09, development program, consolidated fund, new book, page 16. Item 05, multi-sectoral and other services. A, administrative services. Honourable members, the question is that the sum of $8,604,800 for head 09 Tax Appeal Board stand part of the schedule. Those in favour say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. The sum of $8,604,800 for head 09 Tax Appeal Board now stands part of the schedule. Thank you, Attorney General. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Registrar. And Attorney General, it seems that I have to return the compliment. Head 02, Auditor General. Head 02, Auditor General, $33,302,500. I now invite the Minister of Finance to make a brief opening statement for a maximum of 5 minutes. Minister of Finance.
Just give me 1 second, Madam Speaker. The Auditor General is a supreme audit institution that is mandated to promote accountability, transparency, and integrity in the use of public resources. Its mission is to independently audit and report on the use of public resources for the benefit of the country and to lead by example, demonstrating all of the high principles of a supreme audit institution. The Auditor General's Department came into existence, believe it or not, with the appointment of a Director of Audit in the year 1862. The subsequent coming into effect of the Exchequer and Audit Ordinance in December 1959 and independence in 1962 marked the creation of the post of Auditor General. The holder of the position has full responsibility for the audit and certification of the nation's public accounts in accordance with Section 90, subsection 2 of the Trinidad and Tobago Constitution Order in Council 1962.
Honorable members, the question is that the sum of $33,302,500 for Head 02, Auditor General, stand part of the schedule. Honorable members, the sum of $33,302,500 for Head 02, Auditor General, is comprised of monies proposed for expenditure under the following subheads and items to be found in the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure. We shall now consider the draft estimates of recurrent expenditure. Subhead 01, Personal Expenditure, page 5, item 001, General Administration. Member for Oropouche West.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome to the Auditor General. I refer to sub-item 01, Salaries and Cost of Living Allowance. I note that there's been a $1,205,000 increase in the allocation proposed for 2023. Mr. Minister, through you, I would want to find out whether or not these are sufficient to meet the needs of the Auditor General for staffing.
The Auditor General's Department, from the time I was the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee back in the 2010 to 2015 area, has always suffered from understaffing. Again, a victim of the bureaucracy in terms of the Public Service Commission being unable to fill the posts in a timely manner. This allocation this year will allow them to pay an additional complement of staff that they brought on this year, about 7 people. 7. And then under another item, they're hoping to utilize the vacant post allocation to bring on some more people, but they're severely understaffed. That has been the case now for a very long time. And it's because of the structure, because they have to use people on the establishment that have to be appointed by the Public Service Commission. It's one of those departments that really suffers because of that.
Thank you very much. As the current chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, I think I'm well aware that the Auditor General has continued to suffer the same issue that you raised, which is an inadequate supply of staff. But I want to move on to contract employment item 16 under goods and services. But I would wait until we get to there, ma'am.
Problem.
Item 002, Tobago Services. Subhead 02, Goods and Services. Item 001, General Administration. Member for Urupuch West.
Ma'am. So sub-item 16, contract employment. I note that there has been a drop of 578,000. And given the conversation we just had with regards to the shortage of staff, I was wondering why there was such a decrease in the provision for the Auditor General's department.
Speaking to you in your capacity as the current and future chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, I am advised that some of the specialist staff at the Auditor General's department who are on contract, their contracts have come to an end and they've moved on to other jobs. The Auditor General is, however, trying to replace these people and bring on new people. And I can give you an assurance today, this is a department that I am very interested in because of my 5-year stint as the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, that whatever funding is required, once they are able to bring on the staff, because it is always a challenge, but once they can find the right people and they can bring them on, the Ministry of Finance will find the funding to accommodate any additional contract staff that they bring on.
Thank you, Minister. But shouldn't the allocation then be reflective of the need for additional support?
Well, the allocation is in the context of the people who having left. So we can always top this up in the media once they bring new people on.
Item 002, Tobago Services. Subhead 03, Minor Equipment Purchases. Item 001, General Administration. Subhead 04, Current Transfers and Subsidies. Item 001, Regional Bodies. Item 002, Commonwealth Bodies. Item 004, International Bodies. Item 007, Households. Honorable members, the question is that a sum of $33,302,500 for head 02 Auditor General stand part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. The sum of $33,302,500 for head 02 Auditor General now stand part of the schedule. I thank the Auditor General and her supporting staff, the Director of Budgets, the Minister of Finance. Honorable members, I must thank you all for your efficiency. It is such a pity that we couldn't have other departments here. I want to particularly compliment the Minister of Finance, the member
Thank you
for
so
Couva
much.
South,
Thank you.
the member for Couva South, and the member for Barataria San Juan for eventually cooperating with each other and all of us in this process. I thank you all. Reach home safely. The Standing Finance Committee is suspended to Thursday, the 6th day of October 2022 at 1:30 p.m. Safe journey home, everyone. I thought so too.